Hi, we're Britt and Josh, and we're building a modern home in the desert. And you can't build a home without owning some land. This is our little slice of desert, complete with Joshua trees, yucca plants, cholla, and a host of cacti. The views are beautiful, and we almost missed out on this great deal. Today we're sharing that story and 4 lessons we learned as first-time land buyers.
This over 2 acres of land cost us, drumroll please, only $9,000. So at such a low price, what's wrong with it? Surprisingly, nothing. We actually bought this land a few years ago, just as high desert real estate was starting to blow up. Buyers were coming in with all cash offers and per acre prices were all over the place. This is when we learned our first lesson: do your own market research. Before making an offer, it's helpful to know what buyers recently paid for similar properties. We were able to figure this out by comparing online listings. On Zillow, we searched for land sold within the last 6 months in an area we liked. We plugged sale prices into a Google Sheet and, putting our old math skills to use, calculated the average per acre sale price. Obviously, there are many other factors to consider when valuing land, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
We applied this technique to the first property we fell in love with and found that it was overpriced by a lot. After making an offer based on the average, the private seller was not too happy about it. He said, "Josh, don't you remember me telling you that the least I would expect is $80,000? 3 question marks. Now, the private seller was a bit offended with our offer, but we were confident in it, especially when we found out that bringing electricity to their land would cost about $70,000, which brings us to the second thing we learned: take into account utility availability and land accessibility. Researching this is not too difficult, but it is one of the most important things you can do. Depending on what you're trying to build, you can find anything from a lot that requires you to be fully off-grid, partially connected to the grid, or fully connected to city utilities. Typically, a listing will inform you if utilities are installed, available, or at least nearby.
In your own research, you might see utilities in the area from pictures or Google Earth, but that does not guarantee service. The best way to determine availability is to call each utility company. They will give you an idea if a lot is serviceable or what it might take to get service there. To be extra sure before even buying the land, you can pay for a will serve letter from the water company, which is generally good for 1 year, and have a percolation test done to learn if having a septic tank and leach field would be possible.
In our case, the electric company couldn't provide too much information besides the cost per pole. That's how we determined our first dream property was not an option, with $70,000 worth of poles needed.
In addition to utilities, land accessibility is equally as important. And for this one, you may just have to learn that on your own. How we doing over here?
I am so glad we're not driving our own car right now.
City cars don't always cut it out in the desert, and we found ourselves stuck on multiple occasions and being rescued by some really cool locals. So just be sure any dirt roads are well traveled so you, your contractors, and delivery trucks can access your land and construction site. The more treacherous the road, the more expensive your build will be.
Which brings us to our third lesson: thoroughly investigate the listing. Property information is public record and free to access. This means you can jump on a county's website or go to their office in person to learn sale history, zoning type, if the property taxes are up to date, and more.
Remember when we mentioned that we almost missed out on buying our property? That was because the listing location on Zillow was in the wrong place on the map. This can be a common issue because raw land usually doesn't have an address, and listing aggregates have a hard time mapping them accurately.
As we started to verify property locations, we realized this one was in an area we liked. The size was perfect for us, and the price was surprisingly low. We couldn't believe we found such a good deal and had to be sure there was nothing wrong with it.
This brings us to our final lesson: go see the land for yourself.
I just got tickets to go to California for the day.
So on a semi-impulsive decision, we took a 24-hour trip out here to see this piece of property. Once on site, we were able to confirm that the land had water access nearby, see that there were electric poles around, test that the roads were drivable, confirm there were some Joshua trees, and investigate the land characteristics that could be a hindrance to building, like slopes, contours, or washes.
What's a wash? It's a runoff channel in the desert for heavy rain, and fortunately, this property doesn't have one. This land checked all our boxes, had nothing wrong with it, and we loved it.
During our search, there were, no joke, hundreds of other listings we looked at. Dozens that were on our not so short list, but none ended up being as perfect as this. Finding land in California for $9,000 really required a lot of patience and thorough research.
Whether you're looking to buy your own land or do something equally as challenging, know that as hard as it may seem, it will pay off in the end. For us, nothing compared to that feeling of victory when we finally received this call.
Hey Josh, it's Mark at Glen Realty. I just want to let you guys know that recorded this afternoon about 45 minutes ago. So you guys are landowners